Hey guys, it's Summing Rush. Today I'm going to be reviewing the favorite vehicle of the famous Mighty Jingles. Now, the Mighty Jingles is the reason I decided to get this vehicle a very long time ago, probably like 3 years ago. He's actually the reason I decided to get the FV4202, which was atrociously removed by Wargaming and replaced with the blasphemy of the Centurion Action X. But criticisms aside, here's the Centurion Mark 7/1. It hasn't really been reviewed by anyone for a very long time, and considering it's the Mighty Jingles' favorite tank, I figure it deserves some attention. So let's get started. The Centurion Mark 7/1 is probably the most underappreciated vehicles in the Tier 9 meta right now. In my opinion, the Centurion Mark 7/1 is easily one of the best Tier 9s in the game, and that's due to the fact that it has an amazing gun. Now, Wargaming's given this vehicle a 963 firepower rating. Don't ask me why. I don't understand how they get this thing. I think it's relatively reasonable for a lot of people to fear this vehicle, because what happens is, well, they look at the gun stats and they see that this thing has 2,641 pen if they equip it with, Brothers in Arms, rammer, vents, and food, which is absolutely maxed out as far as DPM goes, unless you have improved equipment. So when a lot of people look at this vehicle, they see a vehicle with low DPM, and so they subsequently decide that it's absolutely terrible. Now, they're reasonable. The thing is, the Centurion Mark 7/1 is absolutely amazing. And what makes this vehicle amazing is every other statistic apart from the DPM. So the 7.1 has 268 pen. You've got 390 alpha. These are all stats of tier 10 medium guns. The 268 pen is high on tier 10 medium tanks. And you've got this on a tier 9 medium tank. And obviously the Centurion 7.1, because of matchmaking, gets to shoot at tier 7 all the time. So effectively, you've got 268 pen against tier 7 tanks. As far as the aiming time and actual gun handling goes, this vehicle, again, makes up for the fact that it has really low DPM. A lot of people find when they play vehicles with higher DPM and worse gun handling that they're not able to actually utilize the DPM because they're aiming for so long. With this vehicle, you don't actually really have to aim. You're able to just snapshot all the time as if you're playing a Russian medium, except you've got 390 alpha and 268 pen, and you're shooting at tier 7. So you've got 0.28 accuracy, 2.02 second aim time, and instead of spending all your time aiming, you're able to just snapshot, and that kind of brings up the effective DPM to what would be similar of, most other tier 9 tanks. So it actually sort of works out for itself. Okay, now one thing I do want to talk about, and this is going to trigger a lot of people, is the HE on this vehicle. The HE on the Centurion Mark 7/1 is absolute trash. You've got 210 pen on the HE, and this is what it looks like in practice. You'll get a bounce, and then a pen, and then a bounce, and then you'll pen an IS-3. Then you'll hit a Conway for 55. How? Then you'll bounce an Arty. Then you'll bounce the front of a T-29 with 210 pen. Then you'll load your 210mm Hesh for the side of an STRV. And of course you'll hit his tracks. And occasionally you'll forget you're shooting Hesh and not pen someone because of it. After which you'll probably realize that you really don't need a huge amount of Hesh because it's really inconsistent. You'd probably be better off carrying 7 at most. Now, as far as armor goes on the Centurion 7.1, the armor specs, basically it's like any other medium tank. You've got a reasonably strong turret that you can semi-rely on most of the time. Against TDs, it's going to sort of struggle, but against most vehicles, it does pretty well. And then your hull, not so much. If it's angled up to an extreme angle, it'll bounce just like a Leopard 1's armor will bounce stuff if it's at an extreme angle, but for the most part, the hull is absolutely trash, and the turret is going to be where you're going to receive the most of your bounces in this vehicle. Don't trust it against high-tier TDs who are shooting gold and so on and so forth, but against mediums, especially if the mediums aren't fully aimed, the turret does very, very well. Now, as far as mobility goes, a lot of people feel that the Centurion 7.1 is able to climb up hills very, very well. The reality of the situation is it's pretty much just as mobile as every other medium in the game. You've got an 18 horsepower to ton ratio, which is up there, but it's not amazing. And your top speed is 50 kilometers per hour. So you're able to climb hills and so on and so forth. It's just not amazing. Now, speaking of hills, the gun depression on this vehicle, which a lot of people think is amazing, is negative 10 degrees. Now, negative 10 degrees is very strong, but it's not going to be ridge play worthy, if that makes sense. There's a lot of ridges in this game that you won't actually be able to play with negative 10 degrees of gun depression. What you'll find is that the gun depression will help you when you're shooting on the move and you bump over bumps or stuff. What a lot of people will find is like when they're playing Russian mediums and they run over a bump, the gun jerks up and that forces them to miss their shot. I found that the negative 10 degrees gun depression really, really helps with that. And that's where I've noticed the biggest improvement, you know, when juxtaposed against Russian mediums. Now, for everything else, you've got camo. It's got garbage camo. It's a big, huge, you know, British medium tank. It's absolutely massive. You've only got 20% when you're sitting still, which isn't awful, but, you know, I've got a decent crew and I've actually got camo on here. So without that kind of thing, the camo is garbage. As far as the view range goes, it's got very good view range. Generally, what you find is vehicles with larger turrets tend to have really good view range. So this thing has 445 meters view range with brothers in arms, vents, and food. So it's up there. You know, if you put optics on here, it'd be absolutely insane. So that's pretty much the Centurion 7-1 as far as stats go. Setup go, here's what I'd recommend you run. If you decide to get a Centurion 7-1, what you're going to want to put on there is basically my crew. You want Brothers in Arms all the way down, and the reason you want that is because Brothers in Arms helps with everything. Next, what you're going to want is Sixth Sense, repairs, and safe stowage. Now, the Centurion 7-1 has its ammo rack located right at the front, just like most vehicles do. It's like right here, if I recall. So it's very common to get ammo racked when you get shot in the front. And if I'm mistaken about the ammo rack's location, which I'm pretty sure I'm not, it certainly is located right here in the Centurion Action X. So safe stowage, certainly what you want if you're going to go for the tier 10 vehicle. I have never really found ammo racks to be a problem in this vehicle. That being said, I do run safe stowage, so that could be why. I do run Jack of all trades. That's just because of the RD situation. Currently, RD damages a lot of crew members. Jack of all trades really helps with that. And then I've got camo, and repairs. Now, a lot of people will ask, should you choose camo first over repairs? The reason you don't choose camo first is because it's a medium tank. You've got like 15% camo with camouflage. You're going to find you're going to get tracked very frequently. The drive wheels on this thing are absolutely massive. So I found that repairs works more consistently than camo does. And that's, you know, just personal preference. As far as equipment goes, I've already mentioned I have vents, but V-stab and rammer are definitely what you're going to want. The reason I chose to run vents on this vehicle is because of the 2600 DPM. So the DPM on the Cent 7-1 is actually really, really low, and anything you can use to increase that DPM is going to be absolutely massive. If you have the bonds to use improved equipment, I would suggest using an improved gun rammer because that's going to allow you to increase the DPM even further, and that's going to make the Centurion 7-1 borderline overpowered. So yeah, that's my garage review of this vehicle. I think we should go look at some gameplay and give you an actual idea of how this thing plays. Alright, so for the gameplay, I thought I would record this live because I feel like recording live gameplay gives a better representation of how the vehicle actually plays. So for this game, we're on Westfield. I have no clue how this is going to turn out. I just press battle. What I see, like this is the first thing you want to do whenever you play a game. You want to look at the enemy lineup. So when I look at the enemy team lineup, I see a lot of TDs and RDs. So as a Cent 7-1, TDs and RDs are a huge problem because it's very easy for people to snipe and hit you. If you're in like a Russian medium or something to that effect, what can happen is people will sit back at U1, which is very common. But because you poke so quickly and your vehicle is so small, the chances of you actually getting hit by enemies is relatively low. Here in the Cent, it's like, if you poke over a ridge, they have this massive turret to shoot at in this, right? What you're going to see, what's going to happen is I'm going to poke over C3, and at the same time, I'm going to be giving my entire side of the turret and the front of my vehicles to the TDs. So you have to time your pokes really, really carefully. Now, another common misconception, that's economy. I'm going to drive into position. You can see that this thing doesn't exactly fly up hills. It's about the same speed as every other vehicle when climbing hills. One misconception that I did want to cover is the fact that gun depression is not going to work in this type of location. To the same extent, like, how do I say it? If you don't have gun depression, that's going to be a problem. But what a lot of people think is if they're playing high vehicles with high gun depression, they can just play ridges without a problem. The gun depression on this vehicle will not be strong enough for me to shoot at these guys while remaining safe to the other enemies. Like, I won't be hauled down to them. That's just because the gun depression isn't high enough. So here, obviously, gun depression's working. I'm able to put shots toward the Scorpion. But to poke on these guys, I'm going to have to crest the entire ridge. So I'm going to have to make sure that I'm safe to all the enemy TDs who are, you know, sitting way back here. I'm going to take the shot at the Scorpion there. That one went low. which is, it's the way it is. I might be able to hit this guy right here. Good. Oh, this is going to hit the that won't hit the T28. There we go. I had to be careful because, you know, obviously the T28 is kind of hard to pen. I'm able to put that shot into that guy. And you're going to see, it's like if I want to poke on this VK here, I have to show the entire side of my turret to these guys. And it's like, that's not going to work. Now, I see the M103 who's driving forwards. When the enemy drives forwards like this guy is, all you have to do is change, like, his position is really strong if we let him take it. The problem is when I move, I'm giving up the ridge. So now the T28 can take the ridge. But what I need to do is I'm going to challenge the M103 and try brawling with him because, you know, if he pushes up to here, anyone who's in this area gets compromised, basically. So I'm able to play right here. This guy's not looking at me, so I'm just going to fully aim that shot. He's probably going to notice me right here. This is where the gun depression on vehicles like the Scent actually becomes really useful, because I will be able to just sort of drive up on this ridge here and not have to worry about anything. I am relatively held down with poking on this guy. In a Russian med, you'd have to be coming to the right. And so, like, that's actually when gun depression becomes a bit more pragmatic. You see, held down there, he put a shot into my turret, that one bounced, so it works out. I think I'm going to beat his reload. I actually don't know the M103's reload off the top of my head. Put one into him. He's not literally perma-tracked, but he's pretty close. There's not much he can do. I'm going to make sure the next shot just hits his commander's hatch because I don't really want to risk losing HP. You can see I'm still held down to him. He's unable to pen me. I'm going to finish him off. And then that's going to allow us to move forwards and deal with the VK and the rest of the enemy TDs. So next thing is to get held down against these guys. This guy's not even looking. So I'm going to put a blind shot into where the T28 is. The problem is I've been shooting every couple seconds and we're losing. So that's not exactly promising. What's happening is we are losing the other side of the map. So I need to focus on clearing out this side if I can. Obviously the T28's a one-shot. I would consider using HE on that guy, actually. Normally I don't shoot HE at people, but a one-shot like him, totally good. That one goes in. Point my turret towards this guy. He pens me nonetheless. Good shot to him. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to have to leave this location. Because the VK is falling back. Let's see, do I get a shot? This isn't going to pen. That might. There we go. That high rolled in 515? That's like a max roll. Regardless, I don't know if we're going to win this game. Call me crazy. We're actually down 3 tanks right here. Once I kill the T28 prot, the game will get closer. I'm going to take... Oh, I'm not going to take that risk, actually. Okay, there you go. To poke on these guys, I have to expose myself to all those people over there, despite the fact that I have insane gun depression. T28 manages to reload, that's fine. I've got Hesh loaded because I want to be able to kill the Conway and stuff. That was probably a bit of a mistake to have Hesh, but... Oh well. Dude, HE always does damage is such a myth. Didn't even scratch them to that T28 prototype, or T28 actually. Okay, what I'm going to do, I need to kill these 3 tanks in front of me. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a 3 versus 1 right here. And when you have a really long reload, it becomes really difficult to do this type of thing because, you know, you shoot and people just shoot back. So I noticed that the Conway didn't cross. He could be coming back towards the... Oh, shit. The hell is that? Okay, can you stop? I don't want to blacklist him because it's useful to be able to talk to your teammates, but I need to hold this ridge. If I give up this ridge, the TVP will be flanked, if that makes sense. So that's not a good idea. I'm kind of trusting that TVP to win that fight, which he didn't, unfortunately. This is tough, because if I push in, I'll probably get myself killed because there will be 3 guns looking at me. What I want to do is I want to see if this T28 will shoot at me. That's HE, man. How do you pen this guy? Good. And then I think the Conway might be to my right, but I also have to be aware of that SU-101 behind me. So what's going to happen is I'm going to have to drive forwards. I'm going to repair my turret here because I actually want my gun to rotate as quickly as possible. This guy hasn't noticed me. I get the kill before he shoots, which is brilliant. This is where the Conway, if he's smart, will try to put a shot into me. It doesn't look like he has tried just yet. God damn. There's the Conway. Shit. Okay. Did the Conway shoot? I'm spotted. He must have seen me there. Yeah. Damn. Here I'm going to go for the autoloader for obvious reasons. Get the kill. Conway's going to poke next. I'm going to look at the Conway. Hope I reload in time. Yeah, this is probably not going to work out. I want to kill the Conway. Alright, so unfortunately the end plates in my garage did not work, so I had to upload this one to Watt Replays. As you can see though, that was a loss. What? I'm a fucking genius. Ask me how I figured that out. I got a Mastery Badge First Class, High Caliber, and a Top Gun. That game was 5,700 damage, 6 kills, and 801 base XP. Fired 21 shots, 17 of them penned, and I ended up making 28,000 credits. Now, the question of whether or not you should get the Centurion 7-1 is a really interesting one, because I think if you take into account the fact that I think it recently got buffed, but I think most importantly is the matchmaking situation. Whenever you decide a tank that is like whether or not a tank is worth keeping, you need to take into account the context of the tanks that it fights against. Now, the Centurion 7-1 being a tier 9 fights against tier 8s very, very frequently. Now, Wargaming admitted this. They said it themselves in their removal of pref matchmaking video. I don't believe anything they're saying when they talk about the removal of pref matchmaking being the cause for, you know, tier 8s fighting against tier 10s all the time. I think matchmaking is broken, and as opposed to playing, you know, tier 7s, which, you know, you could, or tier 8s, which just get bottom tier all the time, I think that tier 9 is probably one of the most comfortable tiers to play right now, because, you know, if you play tier 10, you just get put into all tier 10 games, so the Cent AX kind of becomes unviable, but if you play tier 9, it's like you can get that same sort of gameplay, just you're not screwed over by matchmaking every single time you play battles. So Centurion 7-1, when taken into account the situation of who it fights against, it very frequently fights against low tier tanks, which is a plus and a minus. You know, you don't get to shoot as at much damage, but it is the way it is. It's certainly easier to play. So I would think that the Centurion 7-1 is actually one of the strongest tanks tier for tier right now. I mean, most tier 9s are going to be extremely strong, but the Centurion 7-1, given its statistics, and you know, you just saw it perform, it's amazing. I absolutely think it's worth getting. I actually rebought the Centurion 7-1 for this video, and I don't regret rebuying it whatsoever. So yeah, that game, this replay that I featured took me 5 tries, you know, at most. So, you know, the other games were just like blowouts. This was the first long-term game that ended up working out. So Centurion 7-1, absolutely capable, a pure blast to play. I really enjoy it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want, feel free to subscribe. That will notify you of future videos. I think you actually have to press the bell button, but you know how it is. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a like. And if you have any questions, definitely just comment. I read all the comments. I don't necessarily respond to all of them, but if it's a question, I'll answer it. So yeah, I'm going to call the video here. Thanks for watching.